Northwest Regional Nutrition Consultant for TDOE, and it is my honor to be with you today and to talk to you about the Food Buying Guide. I would be remiss if I didn't say something right off. I don't know if she's on this call or not, but in addition to all the wonderful training that I've received from TDOE, when I was a new supervisor, my assistant and bookkeeper, Brenda Scott, really took a lot of time to explain the Food Buying Guide to me, and it's important. So I just want to give her a shout out today and just say thank you to her because she really helped me, especially in my early years as the school nutrition director, to train me and teach me a lot of things I didn't know. So thank you. So without further ado, our mission statement is to cultivate a culture of integrity, knowledge, and collaboration by empowering school nutrition professionals to serve nutritious meals, fuel student success, and build thriving communities. Today, we're going to look at basically three different things. We're going to look at crediting in child nutrition programs, crediting individual components utilizing the Food Buying Guide, and then we're going to look at the Food Buying Guide itself. We're going to examine its layout and some of the navigation features and tools that you can use within the Food Buying Guide. So starting off, crediting in child nutrition programs. So if you're new to school nutrition, you may not know exactly what we're talking about, but you may have heard of terms like the meat has to credit as a 2 meat, or the grain has to be a 1 grain. We need a 1/2 cup serving of vegetables or a 1/2 cup serving of fruit. So when we refer to crediting, it's a process designed to specify how individual food items contribute to the meal pattern requirements. And it's important to know that credible food items are categorized into meal components. As you can see on our screen, at lunch, we have 5 different meal components, and there's different crediting criteria for each one of those meal components. There are 4 acceptable forms of crediting: the Food Buying Guide, which we're discussing today, child nutrition labels, also known as CN labels, product formulation sheets, and then lastly, the USDA Foods in Schools product information sheets. And those are specifically used for brown box commodities or US foods. Now on the Food Buying Guide, once this becomes available to you, these links are active so you can easily access the Food Buying Guide and these resources here. But you can also just use any search engine on your computer and you can search for USDA Food Buying Guide, and it should be the first link that pops up. So I want to point out some of the links that we have available for you. We have the FNS website, which is a broad landing page that has a lot of other resources as well. What we're going to be looking at today is the interactive web-based tool. There's also the printed PDF of the Food Buying Guide, a Food Buying Guide brochure, and lastly, there are recorded webinars and training modules on the Food Buying Guide that are presented by the USDA. So those are also available for you if you need a deeper dive than what we're going into. Now, once you click on the Food Buying Guide, this is the first screen that will come up. And you have the option to either log in or create a profile, or you can just continue as guest. The benefit to logging in is that you have the ability to save your favorite items so that they're more easily accessible in the future. You also have the ability to save your shopping list, which we'll look at near the end of the presentation. If you choose to just go on as a guest, you still have the same functionality, you just can't save your work. Where it says select organization type, you would select school there. Because keep in mind that this resource is used across all the child nutrition programs, not only school nutrition. So once you log in, either under your account or as a guest, this is the landing page that you'll see. So you'll notice there's several different things that you can click on. You can click on the food item search. You can click on the food item favorites, where if you select to have an account and to log in, and if you save items, they would show up there, so they would be easily accessible. There's also the option to download the Food Buying Guide. There's the Exhibit A grain tool. There's the food buying guide calculator. And then there's the raw recipe analysis workbook. And then also the fields down below that are the components. Those are also clickable features to where you can get more information about each one of those components. We're going to start with the example of looking at the food item search, which is highlighted on the screen. Once you click on that box, it will take you to a page that looks something like this. Up at the top left, you will see that there's a drop down that you select which program you are crediting for. You would, in our situation, would most likely choose the National School Lunch Program or the Breakfast Program. And then there's where you enter your keyword for whatever you're looking for. In this example, I've typed carrot. Now there was actually a whole lot of carrots that showed up, but I only copied the very first one so that you can see the information more clearly. We're going to start on the left side of the search results and go through each one of those columns so that you can understand what the purpose of each is. The first column is the meal component. So in this case, carrot is a vegetable. The second column is the category or subcategory. And since vegetables do have subcategory, the subcategory tells you that it is a red-orange vegetable. The third column is food as purchased. So this is telling us that this particular carrot is fresh and without tops. Notice that it's not peeled. It is not ready to eat, but it is fresh without tops. The next column is the purchase unit. In this case, the purchase unit is by pounds. Next, servings per purchase unit, and these are edible portions. These are different from the as purchased form of the vegetable. Now, in order to fully understand that column, we have to go ahead and look at the next column where it says serving size per meal contribution. This tells us that this information is based on a 1/4 cup of raw vegetables. So what this is saying is that for every pound we purchase, it will yield 10.3 1/4 cup servings of that raw vegetable. Now I want to show you, before we go to the next slide, the last two columns. There's a column where it says add to compare, and we're going to look at that feature in a moment. And then the last column is add to favorites. So if you wanted to create an account and add to favorites, you can do so using that feature. And then it will isolate these items into your favorites category. The next thing we're going to do, if you notice the highlighted square, is we are going to click on the hyperlink for the product that we're looking at. And this is the screen that will pop up. It gives you basically all the information on the previous screen, plus a couple additional things that don't show up on the initial screen. You'll notice that it still says the purchase unit is in pounds, but you'll notice that you are able to change your serving size for your meal contribution. So the basics that's set up is always in a 1/4 cup. But if you come to this screen, you're able to select whatever measure that you want to. Most of the time, we choose a 1/2 cup, and then it will do the math for you. So this is telling us that for every pound we purchase, we will get 5.15 portions at a 1/2 cup measure. It goes on to tell us that if we wanted to have 100 servings of this, that we would need to order 19.6 pounds. That would yield enough servings for us to serve 100 students. You can easily do the math. If you only needed 50 servings and divide that by 2. If you needed 600 servings, you could multiply it by 6. And then lastly, you'll see the additional information. This is telling us that for every pound that we purchase, so AP is as purchased, it will yield 7/10 of a pound of ready to cook or ready to serve raw carrot sticks. Because keep in mind that this particular carrot was without tops, but it was not peeled. So we do lose some of the product in the preparation. Now, let's use the same feature to look up a different component. So we're still in the National School Lunch Program. This time we're going to look up beef. And I went ahead and added the additional detail of ground because a lot of beef products come up if you simply just type beef. And sometimes you have to play with the way that you enter information to get what you want. It doesn't always work the same way that my brain works. So once you search for that, this is going to bring up a whole list of items. And in this screenshot, you can see a couple of them. On the next page, you can see that there were actually a whole lot more, even more than what's on this page. Now, I had mentioned that we were going to look at the compare feature. That's what we're doing here. So all of these are different ground beefs that we could choose. All the ones that particularly show up on this page are fresh or frozen. But I want to show you what this feature looks like if you choose to compare items. After you click compare, it will bring those two comparisons up to the top and isolate them by themselves, and you'll see something that looks like this. You'll notice that your headers are the same, with the exception that it adds the additional information column for you. So I'm going to give you just a second to look at that. At this point, you can view it as a PDF, you can export it, you can return to search, and you can switch out items, you can add additional items, you can take items away that you no longer want to compare. So this can be a handy tool to look at items side by side. I will go ahead and point out that in the vegetable demonstration, it was measuring it at 1/4 of a cup. This serving size contribution for meat alternates is always 1 ounce and 1.5 ounces. They give you the capability of seeing both of those measures. Let's talk about the food buying guide and grains. There's 2 different ways that you can use the food buying guide for determining grain contributions. The first way is the same way that we've already looked at with vegetables and with meat alternates. You'll simply type in your keyword up at the top and it'll bring up choices for you. The choices that we can see in this screenshot are graham crackers and soda club crackers. So on the graham crackers, if we look at that very first field, this tells us that 2 crackers provides 1/2 grain servings, and it must weigh at least 14 grams or 1/2 of an ounce. You'll notice on the field right below it, it's the same product, but it's just telling you that if you wanted it to credit as 1 whole grain, then you would have to have 4 crackers at a weight of 28 grams or more. So that's the first way that you can check your grain contributions for those products. The second way is by using Exhibit A, the grain chart. You'll see on the grain chart that it has items grouped in different categories. You'll notice that some of the items are in red and blue. So on the actual grain chart, there are footnotes that are cut off. You can't see them on here, but if you utilize that link below, where it says Exhibit A, Grain Requirements for Child Nutrition Programs, it takes you to the actual chart with the footnotes. What the footnotes say for those items in red is that these are considered grain-based desserts and are therefore not creditable for pre-K or after-school snacks. And the after-school snacks, that became the rule this school year. So notice that items are grouped together, and then if you look in that second column, it tells you how many grams or ounces it must weigh in order to be an ounce equivalent. For example, we see in Group B that rows must weigh 28 grams or 1 ounce in order to credit as a 1 ounce grain equivalent. Now let's work through a practical example together. So the example. The manager needs each grab-and-go salad to contain enough croutons and crackers to credit as a 2 grain equivalent. How does she determine how many packages of croutons and or crackers must be served with each salad to equal a 2-grain equivalent? So the first thing that she has to do, or he, it could be a he, is that they have to look first at the grain chart. And this will say that both of those items fall under Group A. So crackers, be it saltine or snack crackers, as well as croutons, must weigh 22 grams to credit as a 1-ounce equivalent. We need it to credit as a 2, so that would be 44 grams. And then we're going to look at our nutritional facts on each one of our products. So we have whole grain saltine crackers, and we also have whole grain croutons. The information from these nutrition facts are on the next page as well, so I'm going to go ahead and transition. So each pack of the crackers weighs 14 grams. The pack of croutons weighs 7 grams, and as we know, a 1-ounce grain equivalent must weigh 22 grams. So we need 2 grain equivalents, so that's 44 grams. So for the math purposes, I chose 3 packs of crackers. So that's 14 grams times 3. That's 42 grams. We're only 2 grams shy. So we're going to have to pair something with it in order to reach our minimum to be a 2 grain. So those packs of croutons were a little bit smaller. So we'll pair one of those with the 3 packs of crackers, and that'll take us up to 49 grams. So that's a little bit over what we actually need. So when we subtract 44 from 49, that shows us that we're 5 grams over. So we can look back up there at our chart and see how many grams does it take to be a 1/4 of an ounce equivalent. For this group of grains, you have to have 6 grams. So we're 1 gram shy of being able to credit this as a 2.25. So we have to keep it at a 2 grain. So that's how you can use the food buying guide and your nutrition labels to determine how your grains can credit. Now, let's look at something else. How do you use your food buying guide for fresh produce? Here's another example. The manager needs 300 half-cup servings of fresh strawberries. First, how does she determine how many strawberries must be served to equal a half-cup serving? The second thing she needs to know is how many pounds does she have to order to have enough to serve all of her students? So let's do the math. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go to that lookup feature on the food buying guide, and we're going to search for strawberries. And then we're going to select the one that is the most applicable to what we're wanting. In this situation is strawberries that are fresh and whole. It was a little harder to see on that screen, so I have it here for you. This told us that those fresh strawberries, in order to credit as a 1/4 of a cup, for every pound that we purchase, we would get 10.5 servings. We need them to credit as half-cup servings. So we're going to say 10.5 divided by 2, and that'll tell us that in order to have half-cup servings, we'll get 5.25 edible portions for every pound that we purchase. We know that there's 16 ounces in a pound, so we're going to say 16 divided by the number of edible portions, which is 5.25. And that'll tell us that each one of our servings of strawberries needs to weigh 3.05 ounces or a little more to credit as a half a cup. So this is really helpful and important for especially our fresh produce because the shapes are irregular and they do not fit into a volume measure very well. So it's very hard and honestly somewhat impossible to measure them accurately using a volume measure. You really need to rely on the weight of your produce, particularly when it's fresh produce. Once it's been cooked or if it's canned, it's more pliable and you can more easily use the half cup volume measure to determine that. serving size. So what my recommendation is that you're going to weigh the first few trays of strawberries to see generally how many are needed, and then you're just going to resemble the rest to look like those. I am not advocating for you to use a scale to measure out 300 servings of strawberries, but it is helpful to measure the first few so that you can see what that serving size should look like. So here's that information in a summary. We had 300 half-cup servings needed. Each one weighs 3.05 ounces. And now we need to know how many pounds we have to order. So we're going to say 3.05 ounces times 300 servings. That's going to give us 915 ounces. We know we don't order produce in ounces. So we need to divide that back out to get it back into the pound format. So we're going to say 915 ounces divided by 16 ounces, and that's going to give us 57.187 pounds. So at minimum, the manager should order approximately 48 pounds of strawberries to yield 300 half-cup servings. But once again, we know that each one of those trays are not going to be a perfect 3.05 ounces. So it would be wise if the manager ordered a little bit more to account for that variation. Now, let's look at a different feature on the Food Buying Guide resource. If you look, there is another highlighted area in yellow, and that is the Food Buying Guide calculator. I personally really like this feature. Even if it's something for your church or your home or a party that you're planning, this can really help you to determine easily how much food you need. So once you click on it, it'll take you here and you can create your shopping list. If you go in as a guest, you have all the same features, but you cannot save this for future use, whereas if you sign in, you would be able to. Now let's start up at the top. So for number one, the shopping list name, mine is labeled Thanksgiving lunch, because that's a big day for everybody, right? Then you can put your date in there. Number two is the program that you are going to operate. So this will be built off of the National School Lunch Program. And then you select your age grade group. I have selected this one to be for high school students. Then you click on the tabs that you need in order to look up your item. So the very first tab is meat alternate. So that's where we're going to start. So when I click there, you will notice that it's going to tell me what my weekly and daily minimums are for 9 through 12 for meat alternates. Then on number 3, it's going to give me, once I type in my keyword, which in this case is going to be turkey, it's going to give me a whole long list of different turkeys that I can select from. Once I find the one that I want, I'm going to click the add feature, and it's going to pull it down to the bottom for me, and that's the one I'm going to be working with. This one is turkey hearts, fresh and frozen turkey breast, whole or halves. So that is the one that we have chosen. You'll see that the purchase unit is pounds, and you will also see that there is the ability to enter how many pounds you may already have on hand. We're going to go next to the very end where it says action. You click there, and that's where you add your serving size. So it brings another little drop down. So we want our turkey to credit as 2 ounces, and then we're going to enter the number of servings that we need. We need 250 2-ounce servings. And so once we enter that, some information automatically populates for us. It tells us that the exact quantity that we need of this turkey is 54.8246 pounds, but our purchase units would be 55 pounds. In this case, we do not have any turkey breast on hand, so there's nothing to enter into that field. Next tab at the top, which is the vegetable tab. Remember, we had already selected 9 through 12, so it tells us our weekly minimums, as well as our daily minimums, and then our vegetable subgroups for the week. We're going to type in our keyword, and we're typing in sweet potatoes. And once we select the one that we want, we're once again going to go over to the Add Serving Size tab. We're going to want those to be half cup servings. We think we need 250 servings of those as well. Now on this one, notice that the purchase unit is number 10 cans. And we already have 6 number 10 cans on hand. So I'm going to enter that there. Then notice the highlighted yellow box. We actually need 12.78 cans, but we have 6 on hand. So we need to purchase 7 number 10 cans in order to have enough to serve 250 half cup servings of these sweet potatoes. Now you can go through all of the tabs at the top, or you can just skip around and use the ones that you need. I've already entered some other information on the fruits, and I did it the same way that I just demonstrated the meat alternates, and vegetables. Now I have skipped over and gone to the shopping list at the very end. You'll notice that on the shopping list, it gives you a summary of all the information that you've entered. This can be really helpful because it can help you to identify any errors that you might have made. For example, look at my green bean selection. I entered number 2.5 cans instead of number 10 cans. We're not opening that many cans. So you're able to click back to the list and select the correct one that you actually meant to select. But what this shows you is a summary of what each one of those tabs showed you. It shows you your purchase units and by what measure. So 55 pounds of turkey need to be ordered, and that's based on 2-ounce serving sizes. We need to order 7 cans of number 10 cans of our sweet potatoes, and that's for half cups because we already had 6 on hand. We've got to switch our green beans up because we messed up on that, but we can see the information for our apples and our mixed fruit as well. So, in summary today, the features that we have looked at on the food buying guide is the food item search. This is really helpful to search for any of the 5 components to see how it contributes to the meal pattern. This feature is helpful also when you're trying to determine how much fresh produce is needed to order and how much you need to credit as a half cup, a quarter cup, or any other measure for that matter. The Exhibit A grain chart. This determines the grain contributions based on the final baked weight to determine crediting for various fruit types of grain products. And then lastly, the Food Buying Guide calculator simplifies ordering by building a shopping list across your menu. You can select the quantities that are needed, and it'll automatically calculate based on the serving size that you've selected, the creditable amounts, and the products that you have on hand. Now I'm going to take one moment and I'm going to quit sharing this spreadsheet, or not spreadsheet. I'm going to quit sharing this PowerPoint so I can share a spreadsheet for you that I've developed that I think hopefully will be helpful for you and for your cafeterias. So it's a resource that I've developed. And I want to walk through it with you so that once it's released, you'll know what it's about and you'll know why it can be helpful for you. Hopefully you can see my screen. So on the very first sheet of this spreadsheet, you'll see a summary page. And this has it broken down by commonly used vegetables and fresh fruits that are found in school nutrition programs. And I may need to make that a little larger, I'm not sure. Hopefully you can see it. So just as an example, under the, okay, so I'm seeing a thumbs up, so hopefully you can see it well. So under the fresh vegetables, the first entry is broccoli florets. So what this is telling you is that if you want a half cup of broccoli florets, you would need that to weigh 1.11 ounce. Another example is for baby carrots. In order to credit as a half cup, that would need to weigh at least 2.48 ounces. Then if we switch over there to fresh fruit, apples, if you wanted a half cup, that would need to weigh at least 2.2 ounces of edible portion. So when we say edible portion, that would be cored. The core is not edible. Watermelon is listed on here as well. So that would be without the rind. If you choose to serve it with the rind, that's okay. Just know that your weight would have to be heavier because this is only based on your edible portions. So we have this for both commonly used fresh vegetables and fruits. But if you look on sheet 2, this will give you the breakdown of how I got that information. So I used the food buying guide to determine how many servings were available based upon each one of those serving size contributions. And then I did the math for you. So as an example, on the broccoli florets, you get 28.8 1/4 cup servings for every pound that's purchased. So when you say 16 ounces divided by 28.8, that yields 0.56 ounces per serving. So that is how the math is done in order for you to know where those numbers came from. And then there's also a reference on sheet 3 of this spreadsheet that says USDA Food Buying Guide reference. So for the items that are featured on here, this is where the information came from. So you have that for broccolis, carrots, broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, etc. If you wanted to add items to this that you may use or take items off, I do not think it will be a protected spreadsheet, so I think that you would be able to customize it. So what I did when I was a school nutrition supervisor, I took this first page and I printed it and I laminated it and I put it in my fresh produce sections, in our prep sections of our kitchens for my individuals who were doing fresh fruits and vegetables to have these easily accessible so that they didn't have to reference the food buying guide every time that they were trying to do them. Now I have one more resource that I want to show you real quickly that complements this resource. And this is a step-by-step guide that should help your frontline staff to understand the process of determining those weights. So this will be broken down by fresh vegetables and fresh fruit. We're going to specifically look at the fresh vegetables. So your staff will need a digital scale. They'll turn that, they'll place their empty container on the scale, and then they will tear the scale out. And so this just takes off the weight of the container. From there, it shows them the reference that cauliflower that's fresh should weigh approximately 1.75 ounces per half cup. And so we have just put what that equivalency would be as a visual reminder. And we've done that for several different vegetables and several different fruits. And you can't see very well at all on this, but the scale does show the correct weights of what that should look like. And keep in mind, you can reinforce to your staff that those weights are rarely going to be perfect. Most of the time, you're going to be slightly over a little bit, but it does need to weigh at least that amount in order to credit as a half cup or a fourth cup, whatever your serving size contribution is that you're looking for. And at the very bottom of the resource, we did a few combination items. An example would be a side salad. In order to credit as a half a cup of romaine lettuce, it has to weigh 2.04 ounces. And then for the cherry tomatoes to credit as a fourth of a cup, they have to weigh 1.32 ounces. So this is a visual of the minimum size that a side salad should look like if you're going to contribute to those serving sizes. And I do not know when this resource will be released because I do have a few pictures to update. And then we do hope that it goes through graphic design to look more polished and a little more professional for you. But those are two supplemental resources that I created that I hope will help you in your kitchens and your frontline staff as they are trying to make sure that their serving sizes are correct for their fresh produce. So now, if I'm able to, I am going to switch back over to the PowerPoint real quickly so that we can get back to the evaluation slide and my information if you need to contact me. Hopefully it pulls up quickly and easily. If not, Marlia can drop the evaluation link. And I think she just did it. So thank you for that, Marlia. I definitely want to take a moment and see if there are any questions or comments in the chat. And she's dropped that, so I'm not even going to worry with trying to get back to that evaluation slide since you have the link easily accessible. But let me see real quickly if there's any comments or questions that I can try to answer. Thank you for the saying that I'm wonderful and that you love this presentation. I appreciate that. I do want to say that we always ask for you to do evaluations, and I personally know that that can get annoying, but we really do use your feedback. And furthermore, I just want to say on a personal level that this is one of the skill sets that I really hope to develop. I want to be a better presenter. So if you have any constructive feedback that you could give on that evaluation, I really do value it. And I do value your positive comments as well. So thank you so much for your attention today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask those. I'm happy to do my best to answer them. Well, so far I'm not seeing any comments, just positive, or not seeing any questions, just positive comments. So thank you so much for that. And I hope that you have a wonderful weekend because you're only one day away. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being attentive today. And please feel free to share this with your frontline staff if you think that this will be helpful for them.
Thank you so much, Trista. And just a reminder, yes, this will be recorded and we will send this out. So we will see you soon. Have a great rest of your day.